Hi guys, I'm going to be going over the color wheel. We will be filling in this color wheel with watercolor paints. So first I'm going to go over the supplies that you have. This is your watercolor set. We will be using blue, red, and yellow, the primary colors. So you can go ahead and pop these colors out. So we have the blue, red, and yellow. You can go ahead and put the rest of it away because we will not be using the other colors. But make sure you pop these out so that you don't get any water on the other colors or mess them up, just in case. So these are the primary colors. These three colors are going to make all of the colors on this color wheel. We're going to achieve this by blending the colors together. So blue and yellow makes green. So whenever we get green, if you add a little bit more blue to it, it's going to be blue-green. If you make green and then add a little bit more yellow to it, it's going to be yellow-green. So the same with all of the rest of the colors. So I will be going over that in detail once I'm done going over the rest of the supplies. So here are your brushes. This is a round brush. This one is good for covering larger surfaces of paper. It absorbs a lot of water. It's kind of like a straw. It basically sucks up the water into the bristles. So you can cover fairly large areas of paper with this brush. It's good for doing washes and smoothly blending out colors. It's a very soft brush, so it's not very snappy. This usually means that it absorbs more water. This is the flat brush. It's kind of snappy. It doesn't absorb much water, but it's good for creating precise edges like this. You can even use it to line like this. Yeah, so you can use the shape of it to your advantage. This is the liner brush. It's snappy, it doesn't hold very much water, but it's good for detailing, for creating fine lines and details. It's good for also lettering. This is the mixing palette. You can use this to mix your colors, also to dilute colors if you want to. It's not very necessary to do that, especially for what we're going to be doing, but that's always an option. And then you're going to need water to wash off your brushes, and then some fresh water as well to get the to get the watercolors nice and ready to paint with. You will also need a paper towel to dry off your brushes and get off any excess muddy water on them. It's really important that before you touch your paints that your paintbrushes are extremely clean, absolutely no pigment on them, because you don't want to muddy up your colors. All right, so now we are going to start painting our color wheel. I have my primary colors ready to start mixing. I have my fresh water and my cleaning water and my brushes. So the first thing we're going to fill in is the primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. So you're going to take your round brush. This is the best mixing brush and it covers the most space. So we're going to be using this one. I'm going to take some clean water and we're going to prep our colors. We're going to do about a drop, or a few drops into each color so that it picks up the paint. Just a nice even layer on the top of the colors. We're gonna let that soak for a little bit and then I'll come back and start painting. All right, so now my colors are pretty much ready, so I'm going to start painting. I'm going to take some fresh, clean water, get my brush wet. These are pretty small areas of paper, so I'm going to wipe off some excess water on my brush because I don't want the paint to overflow on the area. So I'm going to take some red. The round brush is nice because it does have a little bit of a finer point at the end, so it's pretty nice to use for filling in shapes. All brushes are a little bit different. Some round brushes have a finer point at the end, which makes it even better for that type of thing. This one has a fairly good tip. So I'm going to clean off my brush and dry it. Whenever you dry it, you want to make sure that the water is clear before getting another paint. Okay, so I have my red. It's a little bit light. I used a little bit too much water, but that's okay. I can always go back over it with another layer. So now we're going to do the blue. I'm going to try to get a little more pigment and less water this time. Dry it. And now yellow. Since this color is a lot lighter than the other ones, I'm going to make sure I'm using less water so that the pigment shows up a little better. There we go. So we talked about high key and low key in the definitions presentation I did the other day. So a high key artwork is going to have more water and less pigment, so it's more of a washed or faded look. And a low key painting is going to have more pigment with less water, so it's a more pigmented and colorful or a more saturated look. So I'm going to have my color wheel a little bit in between the two. I don't want it too faded or washed, but I also don't want it to be too pigmented. I want it to look like watercolors. So you can see that my water is turning a little bit muddy. So you can always change out your water when it gets a little bit too dirty, even though you're just using it to clean your brushes. Now I'm going to start using the fresh water instead of the muddy water to paint with. So now I'm going to start mixing. So the first color we're going to do is violet. So red and blue makes violet. So you're going to use equal parts of each primary color to create the secondary color. So we're going to get blue, red. I'm doing it in separate sections just so that I can show you how much of each I'm using. So this is about an equal amount. So you're gonna mix these together. See how the brush sucked up all of that watercolor? Yes, it's pretty cool. So now we have violet. I'm gonna put a little bit more blue in this one. It looks like there's a little bit more red. Let's get a little more blue. There we go. And now we have violet. This is a bit of a high key violet, kind of watered down. We can fix that by adding more layers. So if you get too much water on your paper, you can always absorb some of the water with either a paper towel or with a dry brush. This is called thirsty brush. The dry brush will just absorb the water up like a straw. So here is the thirsty brush method.